Over the last year, I've built an HMO portfolio worth £2.25 million, and I don't say that to show off. I say it because most people just overcomplicate this strategy, or they just copy what worked maybe 5 years ago and wonder why it's not working now. The truth is, HMOs are one of the most profitable strategies in property, but only if you follow a system that's actually built for today's market. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through my step-by-step approach to investing in HMOs in 2025, and I'll even show a checklist that I use when I'm looking at potential HMOs to purchase. Now, one of the things that most people get wrong when they're getting into HMOs is they just decide they want to invest in property, so they're going to do it local to them, or they just assume that wherever they buy, there's going to be tenant demand. The other day, I was actually speaking to a client and I had to have a bit of an honest conversation with them, because we sat down and they said, I want to invest in property and I want to invest in HMOs and I'm going to do it in this area. Now, this area that they mentioned had no HMOs in it that I could find whatsoever. And I suggested that we go down a different route where there are more HMOs. And their big concern was, because there was HMOs already in the area that I suggested, their concern was that it would be oversaturated, that there would be too many HMOs to the amount of demand for those properties. And I just realized, I put my head in my hand and had to just tell him straight, you need to buy a HMO in an area where there's going to be, yes, strong yields, good return on investment, but you need to show that there is a proven demand for those properties in that area and a strong tenant base, regardless of whether that's going to be social housing properties, whether it's going to be to young professionals, or whether it's going to be to students. And if you buy in an area where there's just no HMOs there already, it's probably an indication that there's just no demand for it. There are not many people looking for properties in those areas. So you need to make sure that when you're choosing your area, you choose it correctly. You need to be looking at things like tenant demand and tenant type as well. What types of tenants are going to be in that property, and is there demand from those tenant types? You need to be looking at things like, is Article 4 in that area already? You could also be looking at things like, what are the amenities? How close is it to a city centre? All of these different things can contribute positively to whether you're investing in a good HMO area, but you need to make sure that you do the research up front before you start investing. Now, if you want to shortcut all of that, I've created a short list of areas that I think are the best areas to invest in 2025. So you can access it through the Property Investment Playbook. The link is in the description, completely free to access. Feel free to go and check that out. Now, when it comes to checking rental demand, one of the things that people often do is they go straight to agents and they just take whatever the agents say as gospel truth. And there's a reason why this is a problem, because your agent might say, yes, there's loads of demand out there, and they could just be lying to win an instruction, or they could even say, no, there's no demand whatsoever, you're not allowed to do HMOs in this area, which sounds weird, but I actually had it the other day, probably about 2 weeks ago now, where we had an offer accepted on a property, we wanted to convert it into an HMO, and when I spoke to the agent who was selling that property, she said to me that if your plan is to convert it into a HMO, the seller is going to pull out of the deal because you are not allowed to do HMOs in this area. And that was just factually not true. That agent just particularly disliked HMOs and was willing to blow the deal up because they disliked it that much. So when you're looking to find good tenant demand, don't just listen to what other people are saying. You need to do your own research and figure out what areas have a lot of demand, i.e. lots of tenants looking for properties, but a low supply in comparison. Well, one of the simplest ways is going to a website called spareroom.co.uk, search the area that you want to be investing in, or the area that the property is in that you're looking to buy. If you search that postcode, you can search for rooms to rent, see how many rooms are available, but then if you change the filter to rooms wanted, it will show you how many people are looking for rooms in that area. And what you need to find is an area where there is a lot of people looking for properties and not a lot of properties available. Not only will you be able to gauge what the tenant demand is, you'll also be able to gauge how much people are willing to pay for high quality rooms, or the rooms that are the quality that you are looking to rent out. Now, the next thing you need to be looking out for is to understand the council requirements for HMOs in your area. One of the biggest mistakes people make is they assume that maybe if a property is already an HMO or advertised as an HMO, then it will be passed and you'll be able to get a license. Or they might just think that a property, oh, that looks like a big property, that's probably going to be able to be a HMO, and not actually know what the council's requirements are. I've had it actually recently where someone went and bought a property, and they came to me because they had an issue. They said that when they bought the property, they bought it as an HMO, fully licensed. What they didn't realize was that when they bought it, they had to go and get another license on it because of the change in ownership. When they went to get a new license, changes have been made within the council to say that room sizes had to be a little bit bigger, and therefore their HMO that they bought, they end up not being able to renew their license for the number of rooms that they thought they were buying. So local councils have quite strict requirements when it comes to HMOs, things like room sizes, fire safety, communal space, even things like kitchen worktop space per tenant. There's quite a lot involved in every single council, and a lot of them vary ever so slightly, and so it's really worth you knowing exactly what your local council or the local council where you're looking to invest requires from your HMOs. So for example, if you're going to be buying an HMO in a particular area, let's just say Liverpool, all you need to do is Google Liverpool HMO standards, and if you search that on Google, there'll most likely be a link on that Google search that you click, and it will be a PDF on the Liverpool Council website to tell you everything you need to know when it comes to getting a license or a licensable HMO done. There's so much in this document. I'm not going to go through it all right now in this video, but if you go to your local council's website, you'll be able to find what those HMO requirements are, what those standards are, and you need to make sure that when you're looking at properties, those properties line up or have the potential to line up with what is required to convert the property to a HMO and be licensable. For example, one of the things that I do in the areas that I'm looking to invest in is most of the bedrooms need to be a minimum of 10 square meters for the way that we look to do it. And I quite like to get a minimum of 10 square meters per room anyway, because I think it just makes a much nicer sized room. But that is not including ensuite space. So if you want an ensuite and it's going to be 3 square meters, then you need to make sure that you're getting a 13 square meter room to be able to convert that into a 10 square meter room with a 3 square meter ensuite. Choose an area and decide to stick with it. You'll really quickly get used to what those requirements are, and once you understand them, it's then just a case of rinse and repeat. Once you've decided on your area and you understand the local council's requirements, the next thing that people seem to stumble on is when you actually have to view and make an offer on your HMO. People can often maybe skip the first couple of steps and rush into viewing a property, and they just go into it thinking it's a big property, it could probably be a HMO, and they haven't done any background research at all. You could have quite a big property and it not be straightforward to convert it into an HMO. You need to make sure that when you're looking at it, the layout makes sense, that there's a clear structure in place, or that there could be a clear layout in place to make it work well as an HMO. Things like I mentioned already, like bedroom space plus ensuite space. You want to make sure that just generally the layout of the property makes sense. You need to make sure that there's clear marked out fire escape routes. There's quite a few different things that you need to consider. Again, if you refer back to the local council's requirements, this will give you a good idea and a good framework of what you need to be looking at when you're going and viewing and offering on your HMO properties. And the next thing, which is probably the most costly thing that people seem to make a mistake on, and that is the conversion. So many people jump into HMO conversions thinking that they can just get any old builder and just treat it like any old refurb, and that is so far from the truth. I had to learn that the hard way. I used a builder that I'd worked with on loads of projects. He was absolutely brilliant at renovating properties for me. When it came to HMOs, he seemed to be able to talk the talk, but he could not walk the walk. He had no idea what he was doing. He thought he had an idea of things like fire safety and all those things, and you know, you just whack a fire door in, all that stuff, and he seemed to know what he was talking about, and I quickly realized that he didn't. That was a big lesson I had to learn. I worked with him on a project. We converted a house into a HMO, and it just had so many issues with it. When building control came round, when the HMO officers came round, they just picked out loads of things that were wrong, and it cost me about £18,000 in fixes. So, you know, it is a costly mistake, and it's a mistake that I will never make again, and I don't want you to make even on your first property. So when it comes to doing your conversions, you need to make sure you follow a clear and strict process to ensure that everything is done properly, everything's done compliantly, with it. Most of all, it's usually going to be things like obviously space and space standards are kept clear too, but also it's fire safety. That is one of the biggest things when it comes to your HMOs that are different to your standard rental properties or a house flip. Your fire safety is just so key. If you're not sure about the exact process to do the conversion to make sure that you are making sure that the fire safety measures are being put in place, then maybe speak to someone who has experience in HMOs. One of the things that's really helped me is working with architects that have a lot of experience working on HMOs. They can help you with your drawings, even if you're not going for planning permission. To get actual architect drawings is so helpful to map out exactly what the layout is going to be of the HMO that you can hand to your builder and tell them what to do. You can even speak to an architect about builders they'd recommend that they've worked with in the past that do high quality HMO conversions or have done in the past. Whatever you do, if you are not 100% sure that you're doing the right thing, make sure that you speak to a professional that has experience doing these conversions already. And that's why making sure that you follow a clear step-by-step process is really important. So I've created a checklist that should hopefully help you. You can download it through the link in the description. You can access it through our property investment playbook, along with a load of other free resources that can help you on your property journey. Completely for free. Click the link in the description, get access to it. And now you know exactly how you need to be buying your HMOs in 2025. But HMOs aren't the only way to make money in property, and they're not always right for everybody. So if you're still figuring out which strategy works for you, then watch this video next, where I rank every major property strategy from worst to best, based on what I know is actually working today.